All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the OCD and Anxiety Show. So, my name is Matt Cotty, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And I'm also the creator of the AAA Response. And in this episode, I want to talk about wanting versus deciding to get better. And so, before we dive into that, I'd really appreciate your support for the show. If you would take a moment and either like or subscribe or leave a comment, or if you really want to help us out, head over to iTunes and leave a review for the show, because this just helps with the algorithm of the show and helps us get this out to as many people that are struggling as possible. And that's really the goal of the show, is to try to get resources, information, and knowledge to people who really need it. So if you can help us with that, we'd really appreciate it. Now, moving on to the topic of the day, for when we talk about wanting versus deciding to get better, this is directly from a practice, or I should say, a book called The Practice of Autosuggestion. And what it's referencing really is work done by Emile Coué that was done in like the early 1900s, and his work is just fascinating to me, like just beyond fascinating. And what Emile Coué really, one of the most famous things that he kind of brought to people was the idea of healing through autosuggestion. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not advocating the idea of just using autosuggestion when it comes to the recovery process of OCD and anxiety. And I think it has a role, definitely, but I don't think it's the end all be all for it. That's just my personal opinion. But again, I just wanted to kind of, make sure that I was clear about that. So autosuggestion, really what we're talking about here is when your brain is automatically suggesting certain kind of scripts to you. Okay. And especially in nowadays, right? Especially in America, right? People gravitate towards negative thinking. And one of the things about autosuggestion is you're really trying to prime your subconscious to think a different way. And, you can call this changing belief structures, right, in your brain as well. And when we talk about, someone who's struggling, and this was like a direct, statement from the book, this guy, I guess, was going up to, Quay, and is like, hey, I really want to get better. And he had a certain physical ailment. And, Quay was like, hey, that's just what the problem is, right? You want to get better. And when you're saying you want something, right, you're implying that you don't have it. Okay. And then your brain will come up with all the reasons of why that can't happen. And so essentially by wanting something and just stopping there, right, and saying, hey, I want to recover, right? Hey, I really want to overcome OCD and anxiety. I want to do this. That creates this artificial roadblock, right, in many ways. And I'm sure you can relate to this in your life if you've really, tried this, right? Wanting something is not enough, especially when it comes to this. And in fact, what it will usually do is then create evidence as to, why it's not happening, because you want something. So essentially you're saying you don't have it. And then you'll find evidence as to why you don't have it, and why it's impossible, or why it's too difficult, or why this, right? And just because you find evidence doesn't mean it's necessarily real evidence, but your brain will find evidence to support that. Because you might say, well, someone in my family struggled with it, right? So, and they had it their whole life, or this person, and you begin to find evidence. It doesn't mean that it's real. It doesn't mean that you can't recover. It just means that this is what you're finding. So, and then, so that's the problem with wanting. In my experience, and this is what I teach in my Taking Back Control program, right? With anyone that I work with on any level, it is, we are going to decide to recover, and we're going to make a concrete decision on it. And I just want you to and I just want to talk about this point, because it's everything, when on this journey is saying, like, I am going to recover. It doesn't mean, but here's what we don't do. We don't say, I'm going to recover by this specific time. right? Because, we don't have the say over that necessarily. This is why with Emil Coué, when it comes to his physical, right, healing, he always, his famous phrase, right, every day in every way I'm getting better and better. And that's what he had people repeat morning and night, right before they went to bed and right when they woke up. Kind of when you're in your, like, in the idea was to be in the kind of transitional states of consciousness, right? So right before you go to sleep and is like right when you're in the middle ground of conscious and unconscious. And the idea was to program that thought into the unconscious, and then eventually the conscious would start to, again, find evidence for that, and then it becomes, they start working with each other. And this is really the whole work of autosuggestion, is getting your unconscious and your conscious to work together. And I mean, it's fascinating work, right? But because again, your unconscious is very smart. So when you're saying, when you're fight or flight response is kicking off, or you're having anxiety and you're fighting against it, the problem is that, again, wanting it to go away, consciously, it creates a paradoxical effect. And what we're talking about here is when you decide, like, I'm going to get better, and you start filling your mind with messages of, I'm going to recover. I might not know how at this point. That's okay. That's what, programs like Taking Back Control are for, is to give you the how, right? But you, the only person that can really orchestrate and execute and achieve your recovery is you. That's why, like, one of the main things I preach is, like, you're the hero of the story. Anyone that I work with on any level, it's like, you're the hero of the story, right? I'm the guide, right? That's the role I play if I'm working with someone, is like, you're the hero. You're the one that's going to do the work. You're the one that's going to achieve this. You're the one that's going to be successful. It starts with a decision. It starts with your decision to say, I'm going to do this. I mean, because think about it in another context. Think about, let's say, someone who is, getting married, or, even been married, or they're wrestling with their marriage, something in the context of a relationship, right? Someone that says, I want a good relationship, and then just kind of stops there. Like, yeah, sure. We all want that. We all want a good relationship. But then there's people that said, I'm deciding that I'm going to have a great marriage. When you make the decision, that's going to propel you into correct action, because the action's going to be obvious. Saying that you want something kind of gives you this scapegoat to, like, hey, yeah, I want this, but I don't know if I really want to put in the work, right? Or I don't know. And you can kind of just live in this limbo area, and saying that you want this and thinking that that's enough. And it's not. I'm just going to be very transparent, right? You have to decide. Recovery is a decision. Recovery is a practice. And you have to say, hey, like, I'm deciding that this is going to be my outcome, and I'm going to work to make it so. You have to visualize the outcome that you want, and again, set the intention of the outcome you want, and then work towards that day to day, every day, right? A lot of people, when they're trying things like exposure response prevention or implementing different tools, the idea is like, well, I did some exposures today. And if you're doing some exposures, but you're also 80% of your time is doing compulsions, is like, well, okay, which one are you getting better at? Doing compulsions or doing exposures correctly? And these are this topic right here, I think, is so important. That's why when I was reading this book, I just wanted to kind of extract this line, because I think it's everything. And I think this is one of the pinnacle points of, when you talk about, well, hey, who are people that recover from this and versus not, right? Well, one of the big things that I've seen is the people that I see that really get better operate from this decision of, like, that is going to be the outcome. I don't know exactly how. That's okay. The how will come. But you have to go in with the decision that my recovery is the end game. And that's what I'm moving towards. And so I just wanted to share on this idea of wanting versus deciding, and really just, asking yourself of like, hey, which category do I fall in? Have I decided on my recovery? And you might be like, well, Matt, I don't have that power to decide that. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. If behaviors are what fuel the loop, right? And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about with the loop, I have a little link down in this workshop that I did. It's a 2-day workshop. You guys can check that out in the links but below, because the replays are available. But so if when we're talking about the loop, if the loop is fueled by your behaviors, if you don't do behaviors, again, that loop can't exist. So when we're talking about recovery, and we'll go into defining that even in detail in a later episode, but the question for today and even this week is just, do I want this, or am I deciding that this is going to happen? And stepping into that realm of decision will propel much more clarity on your action and much greater action, and produce much better fruit of your labor than saying you want something and then kind of just stopping there. So hope that was helpful. And again, always appreciate your support by liking and subscribing, as well as sharing, and even, again, leaving reviews, please, just on iTunes to help us. And we have links down in the notes to support you. And then always at restoredminds.com. You can check us out there and connect with us, whether it's any of our programs or our coaching applications, or however we can support you. So we have various ways to support you there. So please use those resources, because they're there to help. So thank you guys. Wish you guys a great week as always, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care.